inihahandog ng Class of St. Dominic Savio, San Carlos Seminary Formation Year.
Naliligaw, nalilito, hindi malaman ang pupuntahan.
Like what I always say in oral communication, we don't need to learn or we don't need to remember a lot of things. We only need to learn or remember 3 things. 3 V's. So the first one is visual. What is visual? Visual has something to do maybe with your presentation to enhance, but the best visual would always be your body. So the way you deliver, the way you stand up proud, your confidence would always be the measure, right, of the visual part. So, the second is verbal. Choose the right words. Choose the right words that would make your emotions, that would make your ideas get across. So it means that when you use the right words, you are going to make sure, or you can make sure that ideas are transferred. And the fourth one is vocal. We practice a lot. We practice accent. We practice changing of the tone. We practice intonation. And we can see that we can get better. Sometimes we feel that we are not enough. But I have seen a lot of changes in you. So it means only one thing. With the little time given to us, we were able to exceed some expectations. It means only one thing, that we are formable. So as you continue your formation, always remember those things. It's not only when you become a priest that you will be using those. You would be able to use those in any endeavor that you're going to have. So next year, in college, you would be continue remembering the 3 V's. Okay. Thank you very much.
A few weeks from now, the school year will be soon ending. We just forgot that we spent almost 1 year in the seminary.
Yup, it's been a year. Who would have thought? It's been a year of a roller coaster ride with these people whom we barely knew. We were starting my voyage in this vocation journey, the priesthood.
This year would be for us academically non-credited, but a year of intellectual, social, emotional, psychological, and spiritual exercises.
Maybe that is why it's called Formation Year, a year of testing these facets of ourselves to this expedition discernment.
Somehow, it is our tipping point, a point that would somehow change our journey forever.
The tipping point, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, is a critical point in a situation, process, or system beyond which a significant and often unstoppable effect or change takes place. On the other hand, this same phrase is also the title of a book by Malcolm Gladwell, wherein he explains and describes the mysterious sociological changes that mark everyday life. As Gladwell states, ideas and products and messages and behaviors spread as viruses do.
Well, we have just been into a pandemic. What a timely idea.
Ngunit ang loob ay pinanghihinaan. Sabi mo, dahan-dahan lang at huwag magmadali. Oh, huwag matakot na magkamali. Hinahanap ang liwanag ng buwan. Di ka lumisan, lagi ka lang nandyan. Hinawakan mo at di binitawan. Di ka nagbabago hanggang sa dulo.
Teka muna brothers, bago tayo magpatuloy, magkwentuhan muna tayo ng vocation story. The story of my vocation.
The love story between the Lord and I was rather plain. It was a love story of a God madly in love with someone who doesn't deserve it. Someone who constantly turned away from this love, became unfaithful, but was still courted by the one who loves him the most. Our story is more Petrine type than a Pauline one. Unlike Paul, who was called in a one-time big-time manner with supernatural or surreal means, I was more like Peter that was continuously called by the Lord even as an apostle with all his iniquities. He started calling me back when I was still a young boy just starting his academic studies in elementary school. Call it typical, but my family played an important role in the nurturing of this desire. Inspired by my grand uncle who is a priest, I desire to one day wear the grand robes of the cleric, raise the chalice in the circular white bread, and preach a long homily. These desires are all shallow, for I know little of the faith, the church, or what I'm aspiring for in general. But every time I am asked, "Iho, ano bang gusto mo pagtanda?" I would always answer, "To be a priest." And when asked why would I say that, "Because I want to preach the word of God." It may sound cliche, but it all started there. This clear desire was muddled as I entered high school when keeping with the values of my immense social life and maintaining a romantic relationship kept me from aspiring to the priesthood further. Just like that, I said to God in an indirect way, "Tsaka ka na," as I allowed myself to be engulfed by this pleasurable circumstance. But God doesn't stop there. Like someone who courts someone whom he or she likes, God persisted in pleasing and courting me. Trials passed, and all that remained is Him. That's when I felt love and gratefulness fill my heart. That's when this gentle voice started calling me once again, saying, "I'm always here for you after all these years. All have passed, but I remain. Pwede mo na ba akong sagutin?" And so was her response. Finally, I said yes. The only thing that came back is the prospect of paying back through offering myself to the priesthood. Though I was still not faithful, and I was not ready. I had a girlfriend as I applied, but broke up with her in the middle of the process. I was still not fully open to God, and so I was not admitted. However, this rejection didn't hurt me but allowed me to mature. Like a fine wine, I was aged and become more apt for seminary formation. As I graduated senior high school, I reapplied, and thankfully, I was admitted. Now, it is slowly sinking in. As the first year in the seminary is ending, that I truly am inside the hallowed walls of the seminary. A seminarian who is being called by the Lord to tend this vineyard for the harvest of souls.
Teka nga lang, nakakapagod. Ako nga muna. Alam nyo ba kung bakit ako pumasok dito? My vocation started when my mother encouraged me to be an altar server.
At first, I refused because I thought that becoming an altar server is a training ground for the priesthood. But my mother said that I'll be there to serve and not to become a priest eventually. It took me years before I decided to become an altar server. I was in grade 7 at the time when I said yes to try serving him in his ministry, and I continued as I received my own cassock. There was a moment when I serving in a mass where I felt God's call within me. As I looked at the host and the wine at the consecration part, as the host and the wine were lifted up, I saw myself on the priest doing such action. It was amazing to visualize such. Quite different from what I expected, but I kept those desires at heart. When I was in my last year in senior high school, the calling to the priesthood came back once more. But I was caught in fear, for I felt like pursuing a different path over the priesthood. During those moments of doubt, I saw a video of Bishop Sok Villegas on YouTube saying, "There are things we need to give up in order to give way for the will of God." Maybe this is a person, or a relationship, a material possession, or a dream. With that message in mind, I decided to say yes to God and got the courage to enter the seminary. I set aside my dream and chose God above everything else, for I believe He will never let me down. Choosing God and responding to His call is my answer to His merciful and compassionate love for me. Just like the Blessed Virgin Mary responds to the Archangel Gabriel Annunciation, maganap nawa sa akin ayon sa wika mo. I see that heeding God's call is the best thing I could do as His follower.
Kwento ko muna yung vocation story ko. Okay lang ba?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. I think my vocation story started when I was 4 or 5 years old. My parents told me that when they were watching a video of St. John Paul II, I suddenly said, I want to be like him. And they said, from that time on, I started acting as a priest and playing mass and acting at times like having a procession. I would vividly remember that during our kindergarten graduation, I wore the papal house cassock that was specially sewn for me. When I was in junior high school, I felt that the call became stronger and stronger, but I did not bother to pay attention to it. And when I was in senior high school, I went to the Adoration Chapel every day until the pandemic came. The pandemic was a quite challenging moment in my life, but it led me to discern more and have time to connect with God in this trying time. Finally, in the month of May last year, I asked Kuya Jess Madrid kung kamusta na ba ang San Carlos Seminary. And then, after that day, an account with the name Manila Vocation inboxed me that someone told him that I'm interested in entering the seminary, and I said yes. The things I faced before I decided to enter the seminary were, firstly, fear. Fear that I did not know what might happen when I entered the seminary, and fear of living the life I was used to. Second is the sadness of leaving my family, friends, and normal life. Third is my knowledge that it is difficult to follow God based on what I read and watched in the lives of the saints. Behind those setbacks, it solidified my desire to continue in the seminary. It was also because of the words that my mother gave me, that I make every experience an encouragement instead of a discouragement. The words my mother said, ginusto mo yan, panindigin mo yan, were the words that woke me into my own reality and gave me the courage to heed God's call. And here I am, 10 months in formation, telling the story of my vocation. And I hope, by the will of God, that 10 months will continue and become years.
Uy, sandali. Nagutom ako Sarap nung amoy ko dito Ako naman, may sasabihin lang ako. My vocation story started in a small and simple town of Mandaluyong, which is my hometown right now.
20 years ago, after days of unpacking all of our things in our new house, my father wanted to attend Holy Mass. That time, it was a Sunday, so my family found the nearest church. So we find the Archdiocesan Shrine and Parish of the Divine Mercy here in my Silo Circle. And the good thing is that we just walk from our house to the church for 7 minutes. When I was little that time, my family was always seated at the first pew nearest to the altar. And at every mass we were attending, my parents would always say to me, "Ang kulit mo, likot-likot mo at ang ingay mo." I was being super noisy and super active that time. Even the shrine volunteers would see me every Sunday, and when they saw me as a very noisy and very naughty child. But the best part of it was that after Mass, I would always go to the priest to bless me, and after that, I just look at any religious statue and touch them. My family is very religious, so all throughout my childhood, my parents would always teach me to pray the basic prayers, the sign of the cross, and the basic catechism. Though my family is a devout Catholic, my parents' faith was shaken. When I was 4 years old, I still could not speak clearly, and the doctor said that there is a possibility that I could speak more clearly after a year if the therapy will be done on good terms. There was even one night before I went to sleep, I saw my mother praying a devotional prayer to the Blessed Virgin Mary. I sat beside her and rested my head on her arms and tried to pray with her. Though I cannot speak, I pray with the language that my heart and mind could speak. After a year, our prayers have been answered, and my ability to speak is very successful. And so they enrolled me next in a Catholic school, namely San Felipe Neri Catholic School, and ever since that, my favorite subject is Christian living education. Even at school, I would always actively participate in any liturgy of the school. One time in 2018, my father was a newly member of the Eucharistic Ministers of Holy Communion, and there is a priest who is very close to my family, who encouraged me to join the ministry of the altar servers in that said church nearest to our house. So with my whole heart and mind, I accepted the invitation of my priest, and all throughout my years in my service as altar server of the shrine, I see myself as safe in the hands of the merciful God, and I can say to myself that God is really present in my life. Even though there are problems, challenges, and trials that I and my family face, God is very gracious and generous in all aspects. I felt that God is whispering to me that He sees in me that I am very dedicated and very selfless in my humble service to my own parish church and my love also to my own family. And He is like preparing me for this path that I chose at first, and I believe that God is very merciful if you are working hard. And this is where I started to think about the priesthood. I would not forget that during the moment that I decided to take the path of priesthood, the vocation campaign team of the San Carlos Seminary went to our school and got the opportunity to try to have a search-in. When I was imagining my life in the seminary, I questioned myself, can I do it or not? And after graduating senior high school, and through the prayers and support from my loved ones, and through God's grace and mercy in my discernment, I tell my family that I decided to enter the seminary and responded to God's call for the priesthood. After all the preparations done, finally, I have been accepted into the seminary. As I entered the seminary for the first time, I see that there will be many trials that I will face, and there are different people that I will see. But even though it was not easy at first, I say to myself that I can do it with the help of God. The 10 months of my formation here in the seminary is life-changing, and I will continue to discern and heed God's call, and to reform myself into a better version of myself, and to be a good Catholic faithful as well. And as a seminarian, I want to see Jesus in others and Jesus in me too. I hope that these 10 months of formation would continue and that I may be persevering in the coming years of formation.
Wait! Ako naman! Ano kayo lang? Unfair kayo ah! I'm not supposed to choose priesthood as my vocation. I thought that teaching would be the best profession that I could have. I see that through teaching, I could harness my skills and can help my family financially at the same time. But things changed when I became an active server in our parish and became a daily mass goer after the board examination for teachers. In the appreciation of the Holy Eucharist, I encountered the change of heart that I am looking for. The self-searching and God's call happened in the adoration in the Eucharist. Though I was employed as a public school teacher, my heart longs for something or someone. A well-paid job did not suffice the longing. I longed for it and ran into the discernment of finding my purpose in life. I entered a basic faith community, involved myself in different church organizations, and became an active churchgoer. God showed me in those experiences the joys, sadness, challenges, and consolation of becoming a priest. It was a roller coaster experience, but those events are a good jumpstart in this valley of discernment. Honestly, the discernment process before entering the seminary is not an easy one, but with God's grace and guidance, those hardships became my stepping stones to pursuing this vocation, strengthening my heart and persevering. Following God's call is quite a challenging task, but God's love, mercy, and compassion lead me to where I am today. Yan ang rason kung bakit ako napadpad dito. Who would have thought? I'll be a seminarian at maging classmate mo.
Teka brothers, nakita nyo yan? Gusto nyong malaman yung kwento niyan? Eto yan. My vocation started
when I began to serve as an altar server in our parish. Joy and gladness filled my heart as I served in every Mass then. In those times, I asked God that if I am called to the vocation to the priesthood, I may respond to His call willingly. Though there are times when I halted in serving the Lord due to work, still the desire to serve the Lord through the ministry of priesthood enkindles me. There was also time when my faith is shaken greatly, and I saw the challenge as a triggering factor to pursue the priesthood. This happened when my mother got very ill. At that time, our whole family was saddened by this episode, for the doctor said that her days on earth are numbered. We don't know what to do next. I asked for help from our priests to pray for her recovery. In the midst of this challenge, I also prayed to God that time to heal my mother, and I will be His. I will become His priest. God is really good and true enough. He healed my mother, and she is still with us, inspiring us and guiding us. In the midst of my shortcomings and challenges in faith that I have gone through, God still showed His mercy and compassion upon me and my family. Sounds cliche, but after that event, I also start to discern the priestly vocation. With the help of my family, friends, and of my spiritual fathers, I got to strengthen and concretize my will and wholeheartedly surrendered myself to God and entered the seminary. Quite challenging, but my life events lead me to Him. Nandito ako dahil sa biyaya at awa ng Panginoon.
Sa mundong magulo, sa mundong maingay, may natatanging tinig pa ring maririnig.
Daan man patungo sa Kanya ay di madali,
Lubak-lubak, liku-liko, may takot at pangamba. Ngunit isa ang sigurado, na sa landas na aming tinatahak, siya lamang ang tanging sigurado, ang aming galak at pahinga. Anumang naging hamon, tuloy na babaybayin ang daan, patungo sa landas kung saan kami nahubog.
Nagbabago hanggang sa dulo.
FY, balik kayo ha!
Ngunit ang loob ay pinanghihinaan. Sabi mo, dahan-dahan lang at huwag magmadali.